Are you a Green Bay Packers fan? If yes, you are in the right channel. Before watching the video, I ask you to please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you. Jonathan Taylor blockbuster and 4 other trades Packers must make before deadline. What trades do the Green Bay Packers need to make before this year's deadline? The Green Bay Packers are 2 after a pretty disappointing home loss to the Detroit Lions in Week 4. Despite the fact that this team is 2 and has a very young roster, General Manager Brian Gutekunst might have an opportunity to add impact players to his roster at the 2023 NFL trade deadline and give a serious run at not only an NFC wildcard playoff spot, but the NFC North. How can the Packers put together a roster to contend with the Lions right now? Or if the Minnesota Vikings begin making a little comeback? There are some trades this team could make to really put their roster in a great position. One obvious trade rumor that's been floating around in the last month or so is obviously one that would bring Jonathan Taylor back to the state of Wisconsin and potentially give the Packers a lethal duo between he and Aaron Jones. What other trades could this team look into? Are there any that make sense? Jonathan Taylor blockbuster and 4 other trades for Green Bay Packers. 1. Jonathan Taylor trade needs to go down. Because the Packers have already been connected to this potential blockbuster trade, I think it makes sense to continue connecting them, no matter what gets reported. Yes, trading for Jonathan Taylor is likely to cost more draft capital than you'd ideally give up for a running back, but the Packers could potentially drive the price down at least a little bit if they include someone like A.J. Dillon in this trade with the Colts. That would give the Colts a player on an expiring deal at a position they need someone to shoulder some of the load, and it would allow the Packers to perhaps just give the Colts a second-round pick instead of multiple picks. Ultimately, the potential of having Aaron Jones and Jonathan Taylor together in this Green Bay backfield sets up Jordan Love for a ton of success. Those are 2 guys you can really lean on in the running game as well as in the passing game. 2. Packers should ask about Bengals WRT Higgins, old Jonah Williams. If the Green Bay Packers are in on a player like Jonathan Taylor, it would be fascinating to see them in on another offensive skill player like T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. Hey, shouldn't the Packers have drafted T. Higgins that one time? It might cost you a first-round pick, at least, to get this kind of deal done, and would undoubtedly cost a bunch of money on top of that. But the Packers have a young QB under contract right now, and they're not likely to have to pay him $50 million per year anytime soon. T. Higgins is capable of shouldering a true WR1 load, and at this point the Packers are relying on Christian Watson to do that. But with T. Higgins as the featured piece of the Green Bay passing game, things could really open up for guys like Watson, Jaden Reed, and Romeo Doubs. Wide receiver isn't the primary need for the Packers at the moment, but when certain guys become available, you at least have to inquire about the price. Perhaps the Bengals would even do something like Higgins for Watson and a pick. Also, what's the deal right now with Jonah Williams? Does he still want to be traded? If so, it could be interesting to see what the Bengals would ask for in return for him, because he may not be in their long-term plans. 3. Packers should see if they can get W.R. Courtland Sutton for bargain. Even if it's a minor move, I like the idea of the Packers maybe adding a veteran receiver to this young room they currently have. Courtland Sutton could come at a discounted price, certainly by comparison to T. Higgins, and could serve a crucial role for this offense. Number 1, the Packers really don't have a ton of veterans on that side of the ball. A player like Courtland Sutton, who could potentially be had for just a 3rd-round pick, could provide some much-needed veteran presence to the Green Bay offense. Again, the Packers aren't exactly struggling right now for receiver help, but a player like Sutton raises the floor of the room, gives you a good run blocker at the position, a red zone weapon, a veteran, a leader, and someone who could be great for young receivers to be around. 4. Could Derrick Henry boost Packers' playoff hopes? We've discussed it before, but depending on where the Tennessee Titans are at here in a couple of weeks, it could be interesting to see what kind of fire sale they might have. It's hard to picture Derrick Henry playing for any other team at this point, but he's obviously got some history with Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, having played for him when LaFleur was the offensive coordinator for the Titans. That also just happened to be during Henry's breakout year in the NFL. Maybe the Packers could send A.J. Dillon to Tennessee in a trade for Henry and do some kind of swap there. One way or another, I don't hate the idea of the Packers finding a way to upgrade the RB position, whether that's through a rather substantial trade like this, or maybe something a little more modest. 5. keep tabs on Broncos CB Pat Certain too. Every NFL team in the league right now should be keeping tabs on Pat Certain too. Making trades ahead of the trade deadline is not just about fixing areas of need, but it can also be about adding building blocks for the future. If a player like this becomes available, the Packers, and just about every other NFL team, should be interested. The Broncos would undoubtedly want a Jalen Ramsey-level package of picks, multiple first-rounders for starters, in any hypothetical trade of Pat Certain, but he doesn't seem to currently fit with the team's overall roster strengths. The Broncos may hold on to Certain for dear life as they look to get back on track after beating the Bears, but if they end up having a fire sale, this would be a situation to monitor, because Certain is arguably the #1 corner in the entire NFL right now. Please the like on the video and subscribe to the channel. I update you with the news in the next video. Bye.